there's a coach that could come in to the North Carolina area that I think Tennessee fans should be very worried about. And tell me about it. The Tar Heels might hire whom?
The Tar Heels might hire Bill Belichick. That's right, guys. They are in
Wow.
talks with each other right now.
Okay.
So
So level of concern if you're Tennessee, who needs the Carolinas to work for them in recruiting. Scale of 1 to 10, Caleb.
I know you're going to go totally opposite with me. And I want to say up front before I say what I'm about to say, I think Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in NFL history. I think that the success in New England, I don't care what happened in Tampa, was much more about Bill Belichick's defense than it was Tom Brady. Tom Brady turned into a great player, but Bill Belichick was the start of that. My worry if I'm a Tennessee fan is a 1. This won't work. And do you want to tell me why you think it will, or do you want me to tell you why I am sure that it won't?
Yeah, I think it hurts Tennessee because he will walk in, especially if it's somebody that's a North Carolina fan, if it's a family that's a North Carolina fan, I think you get them immediately. Like, let's say I'm just picking randomly. Let's say it's James Pierce, David Sanders. I don't know if they grew up North Carolina fans or not, but let's say they did. And there's absolutely no reason to go to North Carolina with Mac Brown there, right? I mean, there's really no future in that. I question the development, that sort of thing. But I think Bill Belichick would have the panache like Nick Saban had of, I'm going to develop you and get you ready for the NFL. That would be his sales pitch. So as opposed to Tennessee perhaps ruling North Carolina, if they were to go hire some goofball, and I'm going to get to that, Steve. Why would Bill want to coach at North Carolina? But I believe that you would have a lot of kids that grew up North Carolina fans, maybe just via basketball, that would say, yep, I'm going to give him a shot. I can always transfer portal out if I need to, but I'm going to give him a shot and see what you can build. Now, I covered North Carolina in recruiting. There is a big sense of pride there. There are a lot of prospects you talk to that have to make business decisions against their heart, Caleb. I mean, that's it. I can't tell you how many I talked to over the years. Todd Gurley would be one that deep down he wanted North Carolina to be great, but that was never really even an option. And I could list more, but if they believe, if there's an influx of NIL and Bill Belichick, and they believe that you could rise North Carolina up, Tennessee would lose 2 or 3 prospects that they're in on. I'm not talking about losing a dozen. You know that, right?
Yeah, you're talking 2 or 3.
About losing one David Sanders or one James Pierce. That would absolutely be horrible. Now, Steve says, why would Bill Belichick want to coach at North Carolina? Well, to be honest with you, the same reason Jerry Green wanted to coach at Tennessee, because it's a golden parachute, gives him something to do. He's a workaholic.
Jerry Green wasn't a workaholic.
Well, he was a somethingaholic. And you couldn't even get he couldn't get a sniff for an NFL job because he wants total control. Well, if I'm North Carolina, and I know you want to argue, I wouldn't think you'd argue with this, but if there's anybody I'm turning over complete control to, it's going to be Bill Belichick, right?
Yes. Now my turn.
Okay, go.
Bill Belichick won't be able to recruit. Let me just put that out there. Bill Belichick can't recruit. You guys are thinking that he's like, because he's such a just insufferable human being, that Nick Saban, that you see Nick Saban in him, and Nick Saban was able to recruit. But Dave, you're forgetting one big thing about Nick Saban. When Nick Saban first took the LSU job, he was not as insufferable of a human being as he became. He was actually a really nice guy back then. And then he won and he became insufferable. Okay. Also, he was at LSU. Bill Belichick has no credibility right now as a college coach to be able to recruit. Also, he's a defensive coach, not an offensive coach. And what have I always said to you guys? And I've said this to you, Dave, and I think you agree with me. Offense, you win with X's and O's. Defense, you win with Jimmys and Joes. Fair?
Well, but okay, we're talking about a whole different world with Belichick. Nobody's going to be out of position. Everybody's going to be fundamentally sound. I mean, that's just, I mean,
he has no cutting edge offensive game plan though to get North Carolina ahead. That's my point.
There's something to be said for solid fundamentals winning football games.
Not when you don't have the Jimmys and Joes. The solid fundamentals is important when you have the Jimmys and Joes because you just need to make sure they don't make mistakes. But when you are coaching an undermanned team, you need to be ahead of the curve on X's and O's with a cutting-edge creative offense. Name the last defensive coordinator, Dave. The last defensive coordinator that became a head coach that did like what Josh Heupel did at Tennessee, did that at a school that was down in the dumps as a defensive coach.
Well, I mean, you have to give me Kirby Smart and Nick Saban.
No, Kirby Smart and Nick Saban took over elite programs already.
Alabama wasn't elite at the time. Georgia was at a 10-win per season.
Put it this way, that had a bunch of talent they didn't take over what Josh Heupel took over at Tennessee. Can we say that? They didn't take over the dump that Josh Heupel took over at Tennessee.
No, but very few did. I mean, at a top 25 program, I mean, that's as dumpy as it can get.
Yeah, and only an offensive coach with a creative mind could turn that around. What I'm trying to say is this. How about this? Name a defensive coach that took over a school that couldn't recruit top 10 level and was able to win top 10 talent, and was able to win like a top 10 team. It's all offensive coaches that do that. You give me Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, I'm giving you number one recruiting classes. And I'm telling you, Bill Belichick won't be bringing in number one recruiting classes. That's not going to be happening.
Okay.
And also,
but Christine says Patriots had trillions of dollars, Dave. Carolina don't. Huge difference. But listen, Christine, here's what you're missing. I'm talking about if they go all in. I'm not talking about if they hire Bill Belichick and say, we're not spending the darn NIL dollar. If they go all in, I mean, they have the money. I mean, that's
Michael Jordan could just give them the money.
Yeah. I mean, they could get behind this thing. I mean, guys, if Deion Sanders can turn around Colorado, then Bill Belichick could turn around the University of North Carolina.
Do you think Bill Belichick could recruit the way Deion Sanders does?
I think he would hire the right people and surround himself with the right people that could.
That's for X's and O's, but the head coaches, Dave, you covered recruiting. Players commit to the head coach. Like rule number one, most of the time, they commit to the head coach, not to the assistants, right?
Most of the time, yes. But you can also be a closer and just show up. Steve Spurrier was that.
Yeah, but Steve Spurrier, players committed to Steve Spurrier because they wanted to play in that offense. And also he was at Florida and winning a lot of games. And so I don't think Bill Belichick would have the cachet that Deion would. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bill Belichick's name will help him recruit. But, I mean, the guy hasn't been successful coaching, and, like, his last Super Bowl was 6 years ago. So these kids that would be coming out would be 12 or 13, would have been 12 or 13 when he was last successful. So I'm not really seeing this. And I get what you know North Carolina better than I do. You know what I see as North Carolina? And I'll tell you this way. I'll do the reverse. I've told you guys I grew up in Memphis. I knew a lot of Tennessee football fans in Memphis. A lot of them lived there that were like, I grew up watching them. I've always loved them. You know what I never heard? I grew up watching Tennessee basketball. Never heard one person say that in Memphis. I feel like the whole state of North Carolina, they may tell you, I grew up watching North Carolina basketball. Love them. I doubt one player has ever said, I grew up watching North Carolina football in history. Okay, I doubt one person.
Make it our poll question. I'm going to share some numbers with you here in a second because I think you undervalue the amount of money that North Carolina has. So that's brought to you.
Also, if Michael Jordan is throwing the money at the players, he misevaluates everybody anyway.
Probably true. All right. So set up a poll question now. Would Bill Belichick have success in college? And it's brought to you by Medicare Misty.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Okay, Tennessee's athletic budget is right at 200 million. So let me give you, and this is not where the NIL money comes from necessarily, but it gives you an idea of the facilities and the sorts of things that they have there. The North Carolina operating athletic budget is 140 million. So there's reason enough for me to think that this could be scary. And again, I'm not talking about they're going to just control the state and shut down the borders. But what if they get a Heath Schuler? I mean, that to me, one player can make a monstrous difference. You talked about how important Nico was. What if they target that one guy?
Not gonna happen. And I'll tell you why it's not going to happen. Why do you think Tennessee's reestablished a pipeline into North Carolina, Dave? You want to know the real reason? And that Mac Brown was forced out?
Because a lot of those schools are terrible.
But Tennessee in the 90s had one, and in the 2020s have one. Why didn't they have one in the 2010s and 2000s? Why? Why do they have one now? Why did they reestablish it? Do you know why?
Well, because Tennessee was off. I mean, Tennessee's good now.
That's not why. What happened was the ACC has effectively been relegated to a second-tier conference. So there was, back in the 90s, like, okay, so put it this way. In the 90s and the 2000s, we always said the SEC was the best conference, but we said, okay, but they're 5 power conferences and they're all in the same tier. That's what we said, right? The SEC is just the best of that tier. Now it's no. The SEC and the Big Ten are a tier above, and then the ACC and the Big 12 are a tier below. You get less exposure, you get less marquee games. So because of that, nobody wants to play in the ACC that's an elite player wherever they are. And it's only going to get worse, by the way, because of that horrible ACC deal, which, again, people keep trying to say that deal's not ironclad. We have T. Scott Jones talk to us on our show. That deal's ironclad. People don't want it to be ironclad because they think it's better for college football if Clemson and Florida State can get out and get in the SEC. That people who say that would like to see the SEC add those teams. They're not going to, and they're not going to be able to because that ACC deal is ironclad. They are stuck in that league until 2036.
Okay.
And so Bill Belichick will not have success.
Give us an update on our poll question. What do you got there, Caleb?
Will Bill Belichick have success in college? No, he can't recruit, 75%. Yes, he's an amazing coach, 25%. People are on my side. By the way, there's one caveat to this. Bill Belichick would definitely be the one to hire Connor Stallions.
Yeah, that's probably true.